Here's a detailed breakdown of what is known so far, caveats, interpretations, and open questions around the claim. What is happening? Reported facts and claims. Below is a consolidation of media coverage and on-chain data regarding this unusual event. Key events and claims. 1. On-chain burn plus messages. A pseudonymous entity calling themselves Huleji has reportedly sent 603 ETH, worth roughly USD 1.65 million, to an Ethereum burn address, i.e., an address where funds are irretrievably destroyed, accompanied by on-chain messages accusing certain parties of using brain-computer weapons. The Defiant. The CoinDesk video notes over 600 ETH worth $1.6 million were burned with messages. CoinDesk 2. Donations to WikiLeaks, other transfers. In addition to the burn, Leshy has reportedly donated around 1,950 ETH, USD 5.35 million in some accounts, to NGO, media addresses, including WikiLeaks, with messages attached. The Defiant. Some sources state that in total, 2,047 ETH have been transferred, burn plus donations, other addresses. BitGet, other sources, e.g. Cointelegraph, report even higher total, 2,553 ETH, across multiple addresses. Cointelegraph 3. Accusations made by Huleshi. The messages claim that the CEOs of a Chinese hedge fund, Quande Investment, also referred to as Wizard Quant in some reports, namely Feng Xin and Xu Yuji, have been using brain-computer interface, BCI weapons, mind control technology to persecute or control employees, past and present. Fork log in the messages, Leshy also claims he himself has been monitored, manipulated, and controlled since birth, that his dignity as a human being has been lost, and that if he becomes a victim of the final stage, he will end himself, leave the world. Fork log 4. Contextual prior transfers. On Feb 10th, this same address sent 33.3 ETH to a burn wallet with a similar message. Fork log. On Feb 15th, around 70.36 ETHs was also destroyed with similar messaging. Fork log. Some of the funds were traced as originating from major exchanges, e.g. OKX, Binance, before being aggregated. Fork log. After the flurry of activity, the address appears to remain inactive, i.e., no further outgoing transactions, according to some reports. BitGet 5. Media coverage. A video published by CoinDesk features Christine Lee presenting this as a chart of the day story. CoinDesk, other crypto news outlets, Cointelegraph, The Defiant, Forklog, etc., have also covered the event, often drawing on the same transaction data and the messages embedded in the transactions. TradingView. There is also a YouTube video from CoinDesk about the burn accusations. YouTube. Interpretation, plausibility, and caveats. This is an extremely unusual case, and there are many open questions. Here's an analysis of what seems plausible versus what is speculative, and what caution one should exercise. What seems more credible? The on-chain events, burn transfers are verifiable. Because Ethereum is public, one can validate that 603 ETH was sent to a burn address, i.e. an address with no private key, and that donations/transfers happened from that address. Multiple independent crypto analytics news outlets report the same numbers. BitGet. The presence of human-readable or encoded messages in the transaction metadata is also a known technique that some users use when burning or sending ETH, i.e. attaching data. The accusation is public and loudly stated. Whether or not it's true, the claims have been made in a dramatic public way, via large on-chain actions. That alone is significant in the crypto, activist, protest dimension. It may reflect psychological distress or delusions. The content of the messages, claims of lifelong monitoring, mind control, etc., reads in many respects like a narrative of persecution or delusional belief. Observers and media have noted this pattern. Though note, I'm not a medical professional. This is an observation, not a diagnosis. What is speculative, dubious, or lacking evidence? No independent verification of brain-computer weapons usage. The core technical claim that the CEOs of Quande, Wizard Quant, or others are using brain-computer weapons or mind control to persecute or manipulate employees has no publicly verified evidence that I could find. No independent forensic, legal, or third-party technical report appears to support it, as of what is publicly known. Possible symbolic, performance nature. In some crypto protests or statements, large burns or transfers are used symbolically to draw attention, not necessarily with literal truth claims. This could be more a dramatic protest signal than a literal claim. Ambiguities in total amounts, figures. Different sources give slightly different totals, 603 ETH over 600 ETH, or as high as 2,553 ETH in some reports, and different beneficiaries' addresses. Cointelegraph. Also converting ETH to USD depends on price at the time. Some claims of further transfers have not been independently confirmed. Possible fabrication or performance art. In theory, Huleshi might be a pseudonym or persona, and the entire narrative might be constructed for effect, protest, or as an attention campaign. There's no known public identity verification of Huleshi. Legal? Jurisdictional opacity. If these events purport to implicate individuals in China, e.g. hedge fund CEOs, any attempt to investigate or litigate would run into significant jurisdictional, political, and evidentiary barriers. Why this is being highlighted, e.g. chart of the day. Shock, uniqueness. It's extremely rare to see such large ETH burns tied directly to serious, dramatic human rights mind control allegations. That makes it media-worthy and eye-catching. On-chain activism protest. This event is a conspicuous example of how blockchains are being used not just for finance, but for expressive statements, protest, and symbolic acts. Potential crossroads of tech, ethics, conspiracy, and mental health. The case touches on issues of brain-computer interfaces, surveillance, control, mental disorder, and extreme activism, a blend that captures public fascination. Data narrative. Because the event is traceable on-chain, analysts can build charts, timelines, flow of funds, addresses, etc. That gives it a data story angle, hence chart of the day. Open questions, what to investigate further. To move from speculation to more concrete conclusions, one would want to examine 1. Who is Huleshi? Can this pseudonym be mapped to a real person with verifiable identity, or is it entirely anonymous? Does this person have a known technical, academic, or public footprint? 2. What technical evidence is there for brain-computer weapon usage? Are there logs, devices, forensic traces, medical records, staff testimonies, internal documents, etc., that corroborate the mind control claims? 3. What is the relation motive with Kwande Wizard Quant? Has anyone inside the fund corroborated or denied the allegations? Are there whistleblowers? Are there internal disputes? 4. Chain of funds and addresses mapping. Deep on-chain analysis. Trace where the ETH came from, identify if multiple addresses are under the same control, see if funds later moved, etc. 5. Media, legal scrutiny. Has any media in China attempted to investigate the hedge fund CEOs? Have regulators or law enforcement in jurisdictions taken interest? 6. Psychological medical context. Whether the claims reflect a genuine perception of harm or delusion or a mixture would be relevant for interpreting credibility, though not determinative of motive. My assessment and caution. I regard the on-chain transfers and burns with messages as credible and well substantiated by public blockchain data and multiple independent sources. I view the allegations of brain-computer weapon usage as extraordinary claims that currently lack independent corroborative evidence. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, which is absent in public domain so far. It's possible that this is a form of protest, performance, or symbolic act rather than a literal expose, or partially literal, partially metaphorical. It's also possible it reflects personal trauma or delusional belief, though that should not be assumed lightly. This kind of event sits at the intersection of crypto culture, political activism, conspiracy narratives, and mental health, making it hard to interpret with confidence. If you like, I can dig deeper. Chain forensics, news and Chinese media, attempts to verify identities, and see whether more substantive evidence has since emerged. Would you like me to do that? Here's a structured, legal-style breakdown of what the ramifications would be if your hypothetical were true, i.e., if brain-computer weapons really existed, were being deployed globally to control people, eliminate vulnerable populations, or manipulate companies, with no laws covering them and the devices being nearly undetectable. 1. Classification. Under existing international law, weapons of mass destruction, WMD framework. Even if brain-computer weapons, BCWs, are non-kinetic, if they systematically impair or kill large populations, they could be classified as a new category of WMD under the Geneva Conventions and the Biological Weapons Convention, BWC, or Chemical Weapons Convention, CWC analogs. Governments would be legally obligated to prohibit, criminalize, and destroy such weapons once identified. States that develop or use BCWs could be in violation of Article 36 of Additional Protocol 1 to the Geneva Conventions, Review of New Weapons. International Humanitarian Law, IHL. Using undetectable devices to deliberately harm civilians or non-combatants would violate IHL principles of distinction, proportionality, and unnecessary suffering. Even if the tech is non-lethal, mass neuromanipulation or targeted persecution of civilians would be prohibited. Human Rights Law Article 3, Right to Life, Article 5, Freedom from Torture, Article 12, Privacy, and Article 23, Just and Favorable Work Conditions, of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights would be directly infringed. States allowing or using BCWs could be liable for crimes against humanity under the Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court, ICC. Number 2, domestic criminal law ramifications. If deployed inside a country, homicide, manslaughter using BCWs to eliminate homeless persons would legally count as murder or manslaughter, regardless of method, since intent to cause death or grievous harm is present. Assault, battery, torture. Non-lethal but coercive or damaging BCW use would be prosecutable as aggravated assault, battery, or torture under domestic criminal codes. Corporate liability. If a company or hedge fund deployed BCWs to control employees, that would amount to coercion, forced labor, human trafficking, e.g., under the U.S. Trafficking Victims Protection Act or similar statutes elsewhere. Workplace safety violations, OSHA equivalents, intentional infliction of emotional distress or civil battery, civil suits. Criminal conspiracy, RICO, organizing a covert system to control or eliminate populations would meet racketeering or organized crime thresholds. Number 3, regulatory vacuum and legislative urgency. If such devices were nearly undetectable and not covered by existing statutes, emergency classification as controlled devices, legislatures would move to classify BCWs under export control regimes like the Wassenaar Arrangement and domestic controlled technology statutes, similar to how nuclear or cryptographic tech is regulated. Creation of new regimes, Brain Weapon Convention. Likely an international treaty akin to the BWC, but for neurotechnological weapons, with verification mechanisms, inspection rights, a prohibition on development, stockpiling, and use, mandatory reporting, whistleblower protections. Governments would need to create strong protections for scientists, engineers, or employees who report BCW programs. Number 4, civil liability and mass tort litigation. Class actions victims, e.g., employees, homeless persons, targeted populations, could bring massive class actions for wrongful death, tortious interference with bodily integrity, privacy violations, intrusion upon seclusion, negligent infliction of harm, punitive damages. Courts could impose enormous punitive awards on corporations or individuals who designed, deployed, or profited from BCWs. Strict liability legislatures might impose strict, no-fault liability on manufacturers and operators of BCWs, as with inherently dangerous activities, ultra-hazardous torts. Number 5, state responsibility and reparations, international responsibility. States using or allowing BCWs could be held liable in the International Court of Justice for wrongful acts, with reparations to victims or other states. Crimes against humanity, genocide deliberately targeting homeless or vulnerable groups for elimination or control, would qualify as crimes against humanity or even genocide under Article 6 of the Rome Statute. Number 6, evidentiary and enforcement challenges, detection and proof. If the devices are nearly undetectable, victims would face immense difficulty proving harm. Courts might need to adapt evidentiary standards or create special investigative bodies, similar to OPCW for chemical weapons. Sovereign immunity versus universal jurisdiction. States or their officials might claim immunity. However, for crimes against humanity or genocide, universal jurisdiction may override immunity claims. Corporate secrecy. Piercing corporate veils to attribute responsibility would be a central legal battle. 7. Long-term legal outcomes. Creation of new crimes. International law might codify neuro-weapons crimes or non-consensual neural manipulation as standalone crimes, similar to how war crimes and torture were codified. Human rights expansion. A new right to cognitive liberty or right to mental privacy would likely be enshrined in treaties and constitutions. Licensing, inspection regimes. Any non-weapon BCI devices would be tightly licensed and subject to surprise inspections, akin to nuclear safeguards. In plain English, if this were actually happening, it wouldn't just be illegal. It would trigger the biggest legal overhaul since the nuclear era. States, companies, and individuals involved would face murder and crimes against humanity charges, enormous civil liability, and rapid creation of new treaties and regulatory regimes to ban, monitor, and punish the technology. Would you like me to write this up as a mock legal brief international tribunal indictment, as if it were being filed at The Hague? That could illustrate exactly how the law might phrase such charges. If brain-computer weapons were really being used worldwide to kill the homeless or control workers, it'd be mass murder, torture, and crimes against humanity. You'd need a Hague-level lawyer, not just Better Call Saul.